All right, let's jump right into this explainer and explore the invisible, almost clay-like architecture that actually powers modern scientific discovery. You know, when we think of science, we usually picture researchers in white lab coats, gleaming microscopes, or maybe massive telescopes staring out into the cosmos. But behind literally every major breakthrough is a vast, hidden infrastructure of scientific databases. Think back to the rapid development of the COVID-19 vaccine. Without a centralized, globally accessible network of databases sharing genomic sequences in real time, that record-breaking speed would have been, well, completely impossible. So today, we're going to trace the journey of a single piece of scientific data, a raw block of digital clay, if you will, and see how it gets categorized, stored, molded, and ultimately used to change the world.
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The deluge of data. 2. Structured versus unstructured repositories. 3. The FAIR guiding principles. 4. Ethics of data sharing. And 5. Powering future discoveries.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the deluge of data.
To really appreciate what these databases do, we have to understand the sheer, mind-boggling scale of the chaos we're trying to organize. Imagine millions of researchers worldwide, constantly running experiments, publishing papers, and generating data. Without a centralized system, we just have a mountain of disorganized files sitting on random, disconnected hard drives. To give you a sense of this scale, wrap your head around this number: 278 million. That represents the over 278 million detailed metadata records just waiting to be utilized within the Web of Science platform alone. Now, if you're wondering what a metadata record is, think of it as the modern digital equivalent of an old-school Dewey Decimal card in a library. It tells you exactly what the data is, who made it, and where it lives. That is 278 million distinct pieces of scholarly output, carefully indexed and ready to be connected by over 3.3 billion citation links. It is an incredibly dense web of human thought, and it's constantly growing by the second.
And you can see how this data is distributed across the major mega databases that neatly stack these raw data blocks into a growing library. We've got the Web of Science capturing a massive multidisciplinary scope. Then there's Scopus, another giant housing over 90.6 million core records, which is really renowned for its deep coverage of physical and social sciences. And for those in the medical and biological fields, PubMed is absolutely vital. It provides access to around 35 million highly specialized items. Think about it. When an ER doctor encounters a totally rare, bizarre symptom, they aren't just Googling it, right? They're querying PubMed to find peer-reviewed, life-saving biological insights. These platforms are basically the colossal, perfectly organized warehouses of human inquiry.
Which brings us to Section 2, structured versus unstructured repositories.
So here's the core conflict of modern data science. Where does all this incredibly diverse data actually live? Because, let's be honest, an abstract from a medical journal is very different from a raw spreadsheet of astronomical coordinates. On one hand, we have structured repositories, like the NIH's GenBank. These are built for what experts call industrial-scale science, massive, unified collaborations. Think of genomic sequencing. To map human DNA across the globe, the data must be perfectly uniform. It requires identical, standardized bricks so computers can easily read and align them. On the other hand, we have unstructured repositories, like Figshare. These don't force data into a rigid box. They act more like flexible, unstructured clay. They accept any digital product of scholarly research, literally anything, from an incredibly dense piece of machine learning code to, no joke, a high-definition video recording of a ballet performance used for kinesiology study. Andrew Houghton, the managing editor at the journal Scientific Data, really hit the nail on the head with this. The overarching goal of the scientific community isn't to force some one-size-fits-all straitjacket onto human curiosity. It's to make sure researchers have the right home for their specific type of discovery. Both structured and unstructured databases are absolutely vital. If we forced every single piece of research into a strict, predefined mold, we'd actually stifle innovation by rejecting data that simply doesn't look like anything we've ever seen before.
In fact, about 30% of authors naturally gravitate toward unstructured repositories like Figshare. Why? Well, because science is fundamentally about pushing boundaries and doing totally new things. Take the very early days of CRISPR gene editing research, for example. Before it became this massive global phenomenon, there wasn't a perfectly tailored, standardized database category for the specific types of RNA guides they were developing. It takes a long time for a new technique to become a widely adopted standard. So until those rigid, structured databases catch up, unstructured repositories provide a vital, flexible home for these unique, highly innovative data blocks so they can be safely stored and shared with the rest of the world.
Moving right along to Section 3, the FAIR guiding principles.
Now, to make sense of all these scattered blocks across so many different types of databases, We are currently right in the middle of a massive paradigm shift. Get this, we are officially prioritizing machines over people when organizing our scientific clay. Because the volume and complexity of data are growing so rapidly, humans just can't process it all manually anymore. It's literally impossible. We have to shape this digital clay so that computational systems and automated robots can find, read, and analyze this data for us, completely unprompted.
And to make this machine-driven future a reality, researchers meticulously sculpt their data to follow the FAIR principles: findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Let's break that down real quick. Findable is like giving a book a permanent, unchangeable ISBN number. It gets a unique, persistent ID tag, so a computer never loses track of it. Accessible means anyone's computer can retrieve it using open, free protocols, rather than it being locked behind some clunky proprietary software. Interoperable is perhaps the most magical part. It's like agreeing to build everything worldwide with the exact same sized Lego bricks. The data uses a shared language so vastly different datasets from all over the planet can just instantly snap together. And finally, reusable means it has clear licenses and a detailed history attached, so the next scientist knows exactly how they are legally and practically allowed to build upon that foundation.
All right, Section 4, Ethics of Data Sharing.
Now, before we just seamlessly snap all this interconnected data together and open the floodgates for anyone in the world to use, we have to ask the million-dollar question: who actually gets to see it? Are researchers sharing this knowledge safely without causing any unintended social harm? Just because data can be shared seamlessly doesn't mean it should be available to everyone without restrictions. Think about highly sensitive human information, like localized infectious disease outbreak maps that could seriously stigmatize a community, or rare genetic disease markers that could actually be traced back to a specific identifiable family.
To navigate this minefield, the scientific community relies on frameworks like the National Statistician's Data Ethics Advisory Committee. Think of this framework as, well, a really strict ethical bouncer at the door of the database. Before any data is let out into the world, the bouncer checks the pillars. First, it asks, does the release of this data actually serve the public good? Then it verifies confidentiality, ensuring that personal or organizational identities are completely anonymized and protected. Finally, it checks legal compliance, guaranteeing that the data adheres to heavy-hitting international regulations like modern data protection legislation. These ethical obligations absolutely must be enforced throughout the entire lifecycle of a database.
To actually enforce these ethics in practice, repositories act like tiered vaults. Imagine open access data as a beautifully maintained public park. It's freely available for anyone to wander in and download information under an open license, no registration required. But contrast that with safeguarded access data, which is way more like a high-security bank vault. Researchers have to verify their identity, leave their digital fingerprints by registering, and formally agree to a strict end-user license. They legally bind themselves not to attempt to re-identify any anonymized individuals within the dataset before those heavy vault doors even swing open.
And finally, Section 5, Powering Future Discoveries.
So what is the ultimate payoff for all this obsessive organization, standardization, and ethical safeguarding? It's speed. Absolute speed of modern innovation. The faster machines can read the data from these scientific databases, the faster we get real life-saving applications. Take AI-driven cancer care. Right now, machine learning models are combing through thousands of interconnected, interoperable tumor registries to predict the exact immunotherapy match for a single patient's unique biological makeup. In agriculture, scientists are querying shared global genetic databases to perform root-focused gene editing, literally designing crops from the ground up that can actually withstand severe climate change. And we're seeing massive leaps in cell-free biomanufacturing too, a technique that pulls from biological databases to create rapid point-of-care medical diagnostics that can be deployed straight to rural clinics, totally bypassing the need for massive traditional laboratory fermentation tanks.
And hey, it's not just biology. Material science databases are creating absolute wonders. Imagine you're driving over a massive suspension bridge. Deep within the concrete, an interconnected web of Internet of Things sensors detects a microscopic fracture caused by cold weather. Because digital sensor engineers and chemical coding specialists seamlessly share their interoperable data, the bridge automatically releases a smart chemical resin to heal itself. It fixes the micro damage before a pothole even forms. I mean, how cool is that? This predictive, self-healing infrastructure could eventually save the global economy trillions of dollars and prevent catastrophic failures. And it's all made possible by cross-referencing vast, structured libraries of engineering and chemical data blocks.
Ultimately, the scientific database is no longer just a static digital filing cabinet. It is a living, active, machine-readable engine of innovation. As artificial intelligence becomes more and more deeply integrated into exactly how we search, combine, and interpret these millions of data blocks, the pace of human discovery is going to accelerate in ways we can probably barely imagine. I'll leave you with that final thought to ponder as you reflect on the incredible, invisible infrastructure of science. Thank you so much for joining this explainer.